bit, and that's a separate issue for another day because we're talking about high school guys. The number 3 quarterback in the 2023 class, Nico Iamaleava, number 3 per 247 Sports. He's from Downey, California. Big dude, 6'5", 195, committed to Tennessee. Notoriously has that big NIL contract that was offered to him. Guys, did you guys know this, that Nico is actually also a very high-prized volleyball recruit, which is very funny to see. And that really speaks to his athleticism. The guy can move. The guy moves really well in space. And I've noticed a lot of the reports that have been written on him, and also when you watch the tape, that this is a guy that moves outside of the pocket and throws on the run very, very well.
Springy and explosive are the 2 words that come to mind when I think about Nico, man. He is, we talked about, Joe, like Arch, having good arm strength, maybe Dante having good to plus good arm strength. Nico has the best arm of anybody on this list. Like, he has an absolute cannon for an arm, and everything just seems like it's, whether it is springy in the pocket, springy outside of structure, throwing the football and getting it out, everything is just so explosive for Nico. And that explosiveness also leads to some volatility, in my opinion, at times, right? Like, there's some times where I'm thinking that he's overstriding a little bit, Matt, and I think that his accuracy is affected in that regard. But when you're talking from just a very pure talent perspective, arm strength, athleticism, it's hard to find someone better than Nico, man. He is a special player from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, it's funny. I think you're hitting the exact same points that I kind of noticed right from the beginning, was that he's sudden and he's very quick twitched. Of an athlete and as a thrower. And, he is another guy that, like, he looks 6'5" on the field. He actually looks like he's 6'8", compared to the competition that he's playing against. But it is one of those things where he's 6'5". He has a good frame. He's a little slender, right? He's not like a super broad shoulder type of guy. So I don't know like how much bigger he's going to get at the next level. But, nonetheless, he is a flexible and limber arm as well, like we said with Dante Moore. And, when I watch him play, I see a guy that is totally comfortable, at the position. He's very relaxed back there. And, one thing that I would say that, like, I would say he needs to get a little bit better at is just like, when the guy is open, throw it. And I think occasionally, because he's, so much better of a player and an athlete than some of his competition is, that he kind of gets away with, skipping the first read or skipping his open guy and kind of rolling out and throwing and making plays that way. That's something that going forward, he'll have to learn to just keep it simple and allow big plays to come to him. But yeah, super impressed with this guy. Can really drive the football down the field with power. And I actually, have to agree with you on your evaluation of him leaning forward just slightly when he goes to throw. But sometimes those things happen when you're such a tall dude and you're not quite used to, staying tall. Like, basically, really what he needs to do is he needs to be a little bit more evenly distributed, like with his feet, and be almost slightly leaning like on his back foot a little bit more, like you see like Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen and those guys do it when they're really trying to drive the football down the field. But yeah, I was super impressed with this guy. He really jumps off the tape, and he's actually a tough runner too, which I didn't expect to see from what all the reports say. I thought that he ran very, very tough for a guy that has such a big frame that way.
Joe, it's funny. I feel like sometimes guys' biggest strengths and biggest weaknesses are the same thing, right? And for Nico, it's the same. I mean, he can make any throw on the field, and he throws with incredible power. But that is his weakness sometimes. To Matt's point, he doesn't take the easy thing, right? He was going to hold the football a little longer. He's going to take the second read, push the ball down the field because he can. And sometimes it's going to hurt him. Sometimes he's going to make a tremendous play. So I think there's just a little bit more of and I would rather have a quarterback that way that I can reel back than trying to make a guy push the ball, to the opposite way. That usually doesn't work out too well. So I'm glad that he's a little bit of a free thrower, because I can kind of reel that back. Incredible tools. Just, it's now about harnessing the risk versus reward of Nico's arm, because he can put the football pretty much wherever he wants on the football field.
Those are good problems to have. They really are. Like,
yes, they are.
It's a good problem to have, and it's one of those where, all right, hey Nico, why are you not throwing it? Oh, that was a great play. All right, good job. So it'll be something that a lot of players and coaches, obviously, maybe at times get frustrated with early on in the process for him while he's learning to play at that next level. But there is definitely a lot of wow factor with him and his ability. And, really for all these guys, I think there's still a lot more room for growth as throwers, like physically. And maybe Nico more so than everybody else, just because of his build, his long arms, right? He's going to be able to kind of sling the football around a little bit more freely. But I think with his situation, Tennessee is a great fit. When I watch Tennessee, I see an offense that fits Nico extremely well. And I think it's got a lot of good talent, there. I think they know what they're doing offensively to create points, to create explosive plays. And I think it's really good for a quarterback to go in there and compete at a high level in the SEC. And it's exciting times for Tennessee because, listen, when I was at Tennessee, we were, in the weeds trying to get stuff going. And it looks like this coaching staff has really figured it out finally after 20 years of headaches. And it's a good time, I think, for Nico to go there and to carve his own path in the history of being in Tennessee Vol.
And you see
this is sorry, Joe. I was just going to say,
you're good.
This is by far my favorite fit. If I'm talking about from a player to a scheme to a program right now, I like what Josh Heupel is doing in Tennessee. I think that when you saw what he was able to do with Hendon Hooker in his first year last year, I think it's similarly how I want to see Nico use. Hendon is a guy that can really push the ball vertically, can use his athleticism, and I see the same thing with Nico. So I absolutely love the fit with Tennessee. I think it is a really, really solid fit for him.
Yeah, as Ryan loves to do on the other show too. You stole my point. I was going to say that Hendon Hooker has looked so freaking good since he took over under Heupel. And like you're both talking about here, you take a really good athlete and then you're replacing him soon with an even better athlete. Nico is, as we've discussed fully here, the best athlete possibly of the bunch of the four players that we're evaluating amongst these quarterback prospects. You throw him into an offense that allows him to capitalize on that. And I think that this Tennessee program, for some reason, is always undervalued, is overlooked. Everyone always wants to take a look at the Texas A&Ms or the, obviously Georgia and Alabama sitting.
Well, it's really been the facts though too. Like they've been overlooked because they've been underperforming. Yeah.
But they are a sneaky team where Heupel is getting this team ready, and they've looked really good in the first 2 weeks of this season. And now you're recruiting at a level where you've got a top 3 quarterback in the class. I think Tennessee is going to be sneaky good in a couple of years. If we're actually properly evaluating stock on these programs, I'm taking Tennessee over Texas A&M. Like, I'm excited that this is who they're going for. This
I like
is the
that
quarterback
take
that they want. And it shouldn't be a hot take. I'm sure Texas A&M fans are going to hate that. But this is a perfect fit, as you guys said, with Nico going to Tennessee.
When you watched Tennessee versus Pitt the other day, it was one of those games where I was like, Tennessee's going to go back and watch the film and they're going to be like, we should have beat this team by 21 points. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how much more talented they looked on the field and just how much more of like a little bit more of a well-oiled machine they were. And they let Pitt kind of hang around by just, typical like college mental errors and mistakes. But I totally agree. I think Tennessee is like a dangerous team. And the thing is too, we have to keep in mind with Tennessee is, and this was something that was noticeable even when I was on the team. Geographically, since it's such a long state, right? You're actually recruiting areas like Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, more often than you are that are kids in Memphis. And I think that you'll see too that, with them getting a kid all the way from California, Tennessee does have that, allure to get players like Notre Dame from all across the country.
Yep.
And that's something that they're going to continue to tap into. And this is a great start with Nico being one of them, coming all the way. Because, hey, there's a lot of schools from where he is in California to Tennessee. There's probably like 2,000 colleges between the two. And he went all the way across the country. So, proves to them that they're they're out there, they're finding good talent. And I think that's just going to continue to go right with the attraction of bringing in a Nico.